What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Vinland Saga Season 2. This is episode 23, I think. And with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that Vinland Saga Season 2 is likely going to be Anime of the Year. Just
A contender for it, yeah.
Despite the fact that we still got several other animes coming out in July. But I gotta say, this is like one of the best character development arcs that I've ever seen. Since the first season.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, they pretty much like this is the biggest improvement of like of a single character arc that we've seen. Like Thorfinn, who was just like this vengeful character back in the first season, wanting to kill this person who killed his father. Now all of a sudden, just flips the script into wanting to be a completely different person and trying to live up to, his new ideals in the best ways he can possible. And, in turn, try to influence people to, follow his example, which in turn, like he's successful. He manages to stop Knut's attack on the farm.
Yeah. Well, and I also like how pretty much the entirety of season 2 of this arc was just kind of, like him just like doing self-reflection, like, trying to figure out like where he went wrong, how he can improve himself as a person, and you just do better become a better person essentially. It really was just kind of this episode, and I mean the episodes before that too. Is really just the culmination of his development as a character throughout this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, this.
Yeah, the episode starts off immediately after that cliffhanger from last week's episode. So Thorfinn, of course, realizes that that there's no way to convince Knut to stop him from attacking the farm. So all he does is just tell Knut that he's just gonna simply run away and just sail far away in a distant land where not even Knut can reach him. And Knut is, of course, a bit skeptical about this decision, about whether or not if Thorfinn is really, really intending to, not really stop him from what he's doing. So, he has this almost like this one last conversation, or just like with his dead father, like pretty much trying to manipulate him into killing Thorfinn. But after thinking about this, Knut is, of course, bemused by Thorfinn's choice, and instead he just completely laughs at his decision. Just apparently just admitting that he feels some amount of respect for Thorfinn for what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently this does actually end up convincing Knut to actually leave the farm, because I mean, according to Knut, he never really had any sort of peace negotiation like that before. Most of the people that try to negotiate with Knut pretty much just want something from him, or trying to either they're trying to kill him or they're trying to just get something out of him. Whereas Thorfinn just earnestly wants him to leave the farm and really nothing else. He doesn't have any kind of ulterior motive, and he's not trying to get his way through any kind of force.
Yeah, so Knut withdraws all of his forces from the farm, much to the chagrin of Thorgil, who was looking to continue his fight against Knut, but he finds like a completely empty beach afterwards. And of course, later in the episode, we find that Thorgil, of course, left the farm and is apparently traveling off on his own somewhere. Well, we don't even know if he's looking to still get revenge on Knut, or if he's just gonna find work elsewhere. But that's pretty much all we get to see of Thorgil in this episode.
I feel like Thorgil is one of those characters who it seems like he's not really going to change. Like I feel like he'd probably become like a mercenary for hire or something like that, or a soldier, because it seems like he really enjoys like fighting and
war. I mean, unlike his brother, like Thorgil is like just a bloodthirsty maniac wherever he goes. He just enjoys the thrill of battle, regardless. I mean, heck, he goes as far as wanting to, like, he nearly kills a child by nearly bludgeoning him to death. But yeah, so soon after Canute ends up pulling back his forces, he even withdraws his plan to take over all the other farms around England, and he also decides to withdraw troops from England, pretty much avoiding like a potential uprising from the English nobles, eventually gaining majority of the nobles' respect in the end.
Yeah, so ironically, this kind of ends up sort of like having, creating a better relationship between the people and Canute as a king, because if we remember in like one of the previous episodes, Canute was like wondering how he can if he can, like, what was it, like, try to keep people satisfied under his rule without like revolting or anything, but it seems like this is probably the best approach, is to not be forceful and oppressive, and I guess he's trying to become more of like a benevolent king.
Yeah, and I guess thanks to Thorfinn's thanks to Thorfinn pretty much talking him out of taking over the farm. This definitely was the better route that Canute has taken after that. So it pretty much, Thorfinn just pretty much helped bring Canute back, from his dark urges, like ever since the events of season 1. Basically,
Yeah, he kind of pretty quickly did a bit of, sort of changed as a person after his conversation with Thorfinn, and he sort of like changed his whole outlook on things.
As for Thorfinn, we do pick up. Well, there is one thing I want to point out, that I've seen pics on Twitter about. There was a manga panel in which there was a manga panel in which Thorfinn's face was even more swollen up after, that part. I didn't know that at first, until I found out about it just now. But I think I'm kind of glad they didn't put that in there, because it would have just looked a bit too silly for them to have Thorfinn trying to talk through a swollen face like that.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously still have it look as though he's recovering from having been beaten so hard. Of course, having his face beaten in so much, but yeah, I don't think they really went that over the top with it, like in of course, in comparison to the manga. But it's probably for the best too, because like you said, it would have been a lot harder to really sort of convey, especially like the sort of, sort of like emotion the scene is trying to convey. Like if he's trying to talk to somebody like that, where he can barely really speak because of how much his face has been messed up.
Yeah. So eventually Thorfinn goes up to Arnheid's grave, where Einar's paying his final respects. Thorfinn invites Einar to join him to find or create this new land that they're going to end up looking for. Hopefully free of slavery and war, and in a way to try to honor Arnheid's memory.
Yeah. Because of course Thorfinn regrets that he couldn't give Arnheid in her final moments some kind of like hope that there is something better, or that there would be a land without war or slavery. And he wants to try to make it so that nobody else would live the kind of life that Arnheid had to endure.
Yeah. So eventually they make preparations to sail away from the farm, but not before saying their final goodbyes to Snake, Omar, and all the other guys. Omar, of course, is eternally grateful for Thorfinn for having to convince Canute to, pull back his troops, rather than like Omar trying to go up to him and surrender the entire farm. So Omar decides to dedicate himself to become exactly like Thorfinn, not
Although they do say that it was Omar that convinced Canute to leave and not Thorfinn, just so that, people will, I guess, sort of just to keep up his appearances in a way. But yeah,
So eventually, once they sail away, Snake finally announces his real name to both Einar and Thorfinn. That his real name is how do you pronounce it? Rold, son of Grim.
Yeah, I assumed he must. I think my friend thinks he was watching with me. Thinks he might be from Turkey or somewhere in the Middle East. Mostly because of the sword he uses, which is he uses a scimitar, which I think is something was used around that region. So yeah, that's probably most likely where he comes from.
Yeah. So eventually, once Einar and Thorfinn leave the farm, we see a final epilogue sequence of pretty much everyone on the farm just going about their life as normal. Olmar, I guess, going into a relationship with the woman he met, whose father had his arms cut off, and of course we see Kettle in one scene just pretty much despondent. Just I guess we don't know how he feels at this moment. Maybe he might have felt regret over his actions, over what happened to Arnheid or whatnot, but it's not really clear what happened to that. We also see Snake and his men are all working on the farm along with Sverkel looking over them, and definitely this episode ends on a peaceful and satisfying note. But we do have one more episode to go, which is of course the finale episode.
Yeah. Although this episode wraps things up pretty well, but the next episode is kind of more like an epilogue, I guess, to this arc. And it has we finally get to see Thorfinn return home and be reunited with his family.
Yeah. So I mean, I absolutely enjoyed this episode. I mean, just pretty much like you said, it's the culmination of everything that's happened over Thorfinn's character arc. And of course, so we do get to see Canute Canute's character arc going from almost going into this wannabe dictator to just simply changing his ways into more of a benevolent leader soon after that.
Yeah, I like how Thorfinn sort of influenced the people around him like that. Like, he's influenced Canute to change, and he's also kind of influenced, had a pretty big influence on Olmar as well to become someone, I guess, similar to Thorfinn. He was, of course, he was at first trying to be somebody more like his brother, but now he's sort of, it seems like he more looks up to Thorfinn and is trying to follow his example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was a great episode. Every episode of the season has been just really, has been amazing. Even though it has been, of course, slower paced, but I liked it. It's a very different feel from season 1, and I feel like, I mean, I have seen people talk about this season 2, and I feel like it's definitely lost some people that were probably expecting something different, that didn't know about what happens in the manga, and that this was going to be a pretty different from the first season. But I feel like if people just stick around, they'll find it's definitely worth it, because it, where it leads in terms of Thorfinn's character development is really interesting. I think it's a great series. I hope they continue to adapt the rest of it. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode, which is going to be the last one. This was just a great episode all around. I don't have too much else to say about it, though. I don't know if you have anything else to say.
I mean, we're barely only halfway through the anime of the year so far, but yeah, this is Vinland Saga is definitely anime of the year contender. Even though we've got other animes like Jujutsu Kaisen, the second part of Bleach, but in terms of overall storytelling, I think Vinland Saga season 2 had one of the best payoffs in an anime season I've ever seen.
Kind of gotten to this point where he's just such a completely different character, but it was really satisfying just watching his his character arc play out in this season, and it's going to be really interesting to see how his character is going to develop moving forward, and how he's going to deal with different situations with this kind of new outlook on life, and how to approach all the different combat situations, or just how he's going to, especially how he's going to build this country, or which is of course Vinland, which is the thing people want to probably see the most, is how is he going to create this land without war and slavery. So yeah, which of course this episode was setting up as well.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to see what happens next week, but I guess we're pretty much going to be satisfied with the fact that this season is going to end definitely on a major high note.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, guys, that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.